Hello everyone, it's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. In this video, I want to talk about William Deming. And the reason I wanted to talk about him is that they released a video, Monroe Live released a video on their Twitter account of a speech that Sandy Monroe gave to the Aptera team. So let's listen to that and then we'll talk about it.
So how many people know who Dr. Edward Deming was? A couple of you. He's the father of quality. He took Japan after World War II totally bankrupt. In fact, there used to be a thing when I was a kid, Japanese junk. The stuff, anything you got from Japan was crap. And he helped them turn their quality around. He's the reason that there's a Toyota and a Honda and a whole bunch of other different Japanese companies that are now revered for their high quality. And he said the same things over and over again. Quality will increase as variation is reduced. So we're going to have a high quality product, and the reason for that is because each one is going to be identical one to another, and that's how you make a lot of money, and that's how you get into the marketplace with a high quality vehicle. And why do you want a high quality vehicle? Because everybody's expecting it. How many people here have ever watched the first videos that I put out on YouTube about what happened when I saw the first Tesla? A couple of you? I peed all over it, okay? I told them they had bad gaps. I told them they had too many parts. I told them that this was bad, that was bad, this was bad, that was bad. And then we got rid of the body and we got rid of all the other stuff, and I started looking at the electronics, and that's what saved their bacon, okay? You don't have that opportunity. You're not going to have the opportunity to take a second or get a second chance. So you have to do it right the first time. And that's why, again, I want to see 30,000 vehicles that are going to come out of here, and they're going to be pristine, perfect every time. There's some stuff coming down the pike that's going to allow the guys on the floor, the people on the floor, is going to allow them to build a perfect car because they're going to have a perfect body and a perfect perfect closures. That's what's going to make the difference. And it's got minimal number of parts. So Dr. Deming and I used to give speeches together. He would talk about what will go on the factory floor. As variation is reduced, quality is increasing. And then he'd go like that, and I would say, all variation comes from engineering.
Okay, that was a great pep talk. So, it's kind of sounded like a coach talking to a sports team before they go out on the field. So I was really wondering who Edward Deming was. So William Edward Deming, he was a guy that was actually a mathematician and statistician. He got his degree from Yale University, and then after that, he became involved with the Union of Japanese Scientists and Engineers, and they invited him to go to Japan. And it's true, he went over to Japan, and he was very well known in Japan and not very well known in the United States until kind of towards the end of his life. And this is one of the main things he talked about was the relationship between variation and quality. And when Sandy said as variation decreases, quality improves, I thought he was talking about like having different options on the vehicle, like having less options and less different models, you can get increased quality. Because like I just thought that made things simpler. That's not what he's talking about. So I looked into it, and there was this little page from University of Alberta, and this was the best description I found. So Demings basically said that there's four types of variation. There's and variation, what he means is like variation in the parts that go into manufacturing. So what are the common causes? These are all the things that contribute in little degrees. This is like the noise. The machines are a little bit not as precise, and the materials are not as precise. So there's just inherent variation in like the ball bearings you make, or the molds you make, or the struts that you make, the various parts. They're not exactly perfect copies of each other. Like one ball bearing is going to be just a little bit off from the next ball bearing. And why is that? It's because of the tooling and the materials and the processes by which they're made. That's the common cause variation. And you can't really get rid of this. Well, you can't really get rid of too many of these things, but you can try to reduce them. Special causes means that there's something that's causing it. There's a specific thing you can point out. Usually, special causes are human error. So there's like someone's making a bad decision on the assembly line, and that's causing a very specific kind of variation because of that one thing. Tampering, which sounds like sabotage, that's not what it means. Tampering variation is caused by when people try to fix the common causes variation. So they see a deviation in the process and they try to fix it, but they try to fix it without fully understanding the system. So they make more variation by trying to fix a variation. And Deming said that only 5% of attempts to fix variation actually fix the problem. 95% you made it worse. So if you just kind of willy-nilly try to fix the variation, you'll most of the time make it worse. Structural variation is regular systematic changes in output. That means like sometimes because it's summer, everything's hotter, so it tends to vary a certain way in the summer in the factory versus the winter, or because of the humidity, or whatever. There's certain structural patterns, and so you can change your system to compensate for these, and then you want to study the system and understand it well to reduce this. So that was his kind of his thought process of like if you try to make everything precise exactly the same way, then you have increased quality. So he wanted you, this was his system, was to plan, do, study, and act. So that was like a kind of a feedback loop of how you get rid of this variation. And the last thing that I thought was interesting is these are the main things that Deming was famous for, was for his ideas of what kind of variation there are and how to contribute to get a lean manufacturing. And of course, Sandy Munro is now the guru of lean manufacturing. And Sandy Munro was basically, Deming was his mentor, his teacher. And then this is Deming's 14 points for management. This I thought was very interesting. Um, and the thing I thought was the most interesting part of these 14 things, and yeah, you can read them. You can just look up Deming's 14 points of management if you want to read them yourself. But the thing I thought was the most interesting, which I thought was kind of counterproductive, I mean counterintuitive, was this one, number 4. And it said that um, one of the things he suggested is moving to a single supplier, which I thought was not smart because that makes your supply chain fairly fragile, because if that one single supplier goes out, then you're kind of doomed. But if quality is what you want, then this makes sense, because if you have a single supplier, you have a long-term relationship with them, they have a vested interest in providing you the highest quality product that they can, because they have a long-term relationship to you based on loyalty and trust. And so you have this symbiotic relationship with your supplier. Um, if you have multiple suppliers and the supplier has multiple customers, they really don't have a vested interest in giving you their highest quality product. And so they want to give you their cheapest product and win your business by cost. And so he actually suggested a single supplier. And I think Toyota and a lot of the Japanese companies, they do this. They have long-term relationships with a single supplier for many of their parts, which increases the quality of the parts, but does make their supply chain a little bit more fragile. But I thought when I read through this, this is the one that kind of stuck out to me. All right, so very interesting. I didn't really know too much about William Edward Deming, but he was evidently a very famous guy in Japan, and is now well known in business schools in the United States. But he was indeed the man that helped launch the automotive industry in Japan. And as we know, companies like Toyota are known to be very high quality manufacturers of vehicles, and Japanese manufacturing is generally known to be a very high quality manufacturing companies. So I hope that was interesting to you. I heard that speech from Sandy, and I thought it was a great speech. I wish that they would have released the entire speech. I would have liked to watch the entire speech, but unfortunately, they only gave us a 2-minute and 24-second
after World War
clip of this. But I thought it was quite good, and I think it was very inspiring for the Aptera team. And I hope it does inspire them to make a very high quality vehicle. And Sandy seems to think that they can, mainly because their part number is low, and so lower part numbers lead to less variation because more complexity leads to more variation, so more chances of quality going down. All right, well, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks as always to our supporting members, and looking forward to your comments on this below, and have a great day, everyone.